Whoa. Talk about a banking shakeup this weekend, huh?
Yeah, no kidding.
Two banks went belly up. Not exactly the kind of news you want to see on a Monday morning.
Definitely not.
And, it really makes you wonder, what's going on?
Right.
First, we had Pulaski Savings Bank in Illinois,
Hmm.
and then just bam, First National Bank of Lindsay in Oklahoma.
Out of the blue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on this deep dive, we are talking bank failures. And, I think a lot of people, when they hear about a bank closing, their first thought is, wait, what happens to my money?
Exactly.
So I'm glad you're here to walk us through this because, well, frankly, I think we all need a little reassurance right now.
Absolutely.
So maybe we can start with the basics. What actually happens when a bank fails?
Okay, well, first, it's important to note that the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, steps in.
The FDIC, right?
Yeah.
We hear about them all the time, but I'm not sure everyone knows exactly what they do.
Basically, they insure deposits up to $250,000 per depositor per insured bank. So if a bank fails, the FDIC makes sure that depositors get their money back up to that amount.
Okay, so that's a huge relief for most people, right?
Right. Most individuals and small businesses won't lose their savings. The FDIC either finds another bank to take over the failed bank's assets and liabilities, or they pay depositors directly.
Gotcha. So in the case of Pulaski Savings Bank, we saw Millennium Bank step in and take over.
Exactly, which is good news for the customers of Pulaski Savings Bank. They'll still have access to their accounts and, things should continue relatively smoothly.
Phew. Okay, that's a relief. But then we have First National Bank of Lindsay, and that seems like, well, a little more complicated.
Definitely a different situation. The headlines mention false and deceptive bank records, which is a red flag for potential fraud.
Yeah, I saw that too. And I think that's what's got a lot of people on edge. Fraud, I mean, that's scary stuff. It makes you wonder, how could something like this happen?
Right. When regulators see signs of potential fraud, they increase scrutiny and oversight.
And it sounds like First National Bank of Lindsay was already under the microscope, so to speak.
Exactly. And, in this case, it seems like the problems were severe enough to warrant a shutdown.
Okay, so we have these two bank failures. One seems relatively straightforward, while the other involves potential fraud. What does this tell us about the state of the banking industry as a whole? Should we be worried?
I think the key takeaway here is that the FDIC is working as it should. It's there to protect depositors and maintain confidence in the banking system. That being said, anytime we see banks fail, it's a reminder that, things can go wrong. And it does raise questions about the effectiveness of regulations and oversight.
So, I think a lot of our listeners are probably wondering, how do I know if my bank is safe? What are some things people can look for?
Well, bank size is one factor. Larger banks tend to have more diversified assets and therefore may be slightly less vulnerable. But size isn't everything. You can also look at how a bank manages its money, their investment portfolio, and their overall track record.
So do some research.
Right. Don't just assume everything's fine. Take a look at your bank's financial statements, their credit ratings, and, see how they're doing. The FDIC website is a good resource. They have information on all insured banks, and you can actually check the status of your own bank.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that. That's really useful.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about what happens when a bank fails, the role of the FDIC, and some things individuals can do to assess their own bank's health. But I'm curious about the bigger picture. What can we do to prevent future bank failures?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, there's no easy answer, but I think it starts with a multi-pronged approach. We need stricter regulations and better oversight, for sure. But banks themselves need to step up their internal controls, too. Things like risk management and compliance have to be top priorities.
Right, and I think it goes even deeper than that. We need to boost financial literacy among the general public.
Absolutely. The more people understand about how banks work, the role of regulators, and, the importance of responsible financial practices, the better equipped we'll all be to make informed decisions.
I totally agree. Knowledge is power, right?
Absolutely.
Well, on that note, I want to thank you for joining us today and shedding some light on this complex topic. It's been incredibly informative.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
And to our listeners, stay informed, stay curious, and remember, your financial well-being is in your hands. Thanks for tuning in to this deep dive.